Prime Minister, your springboard to power was being a very popular mayor here in Manchester, but now you represent all of us in the UK and all of us around the world at a time of huge turmoil. The UK's biggest ally is Donald Trump. How was your first call with him?
It was a good call. It was a warm call. Lasted for 15 minutes or so. It got us off to a good start. And obviously, it's a relationship that you take extremely seriously. I need to build a way of working with the president that works for him, but works for us too. And I'll always be clear about where I think Britain's interest lies. I'm not going to go into this and not be clear about that. But I think it's always important. I'm somebody who tries to work with people, make that connection with people. I think we made an initial connection, and obviously we'll see where we go from here.
Do you think that you can trust Donald Trump?
Well, I've had one phone call, and I always treat people as I find them, and it was a good exchange. It was, as I said before, it was a warm exchange. So I am that kind of politician. I always will judge people as I find them. I've lived my whole life by that, and I will continue to live my life by that. Sometimes, you get an impression of somebody from media. I will judge as I find, and I found him to be really warm on Monday. But obviously, we will continue to build a relationship as we go forward.
But as things stand, you're not sure. So you're saying you'll feel your way. You're not sure at this stage that you can place your trust in him as a fellow leader.
It's a changing world, isn't it? And you just have to obviously call things as they develop. And I can't at any point say that I won't take a different opinion from him, that I will need to voice a different opinion that is right for Britain, and I will do that.
So you'd be willing to call Donald Trump out if you think that's the right thing? Of
course. I mean, you've got to go into this. All leaders have to do that. You have to defend your own national interest before anything else. That's what you're required to do if you're to do this job properly. I will always put Britain's interest first.
And when you look at government spending, the cost of sickness and disability benefits for working age people is now almost as much as the defence budget. Are there people claiming benefits who, in your view, don't need them?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go straight to blaming those people, because, I mean, that is kind of implicit in what you are saying. What I would say is that there are people in the benefit system, young people in their 20s, who have been, I would say, quite seriously let down because the support wasn't there for them when it should have been there.
And that may be the cause. And I'm not suggesting you blame anyone, but the outcome for many people watching this is that they believe there are lots of people who are claiming benefits who don't necessarily need them. They could be making other choices. So I suppose my specific question to you is, do you think there are people in this country who claim benefits who don't need them, who could be making other choices for themselves?
Well, I'm certain, to answer your question, I am certain that there are people out there who, with the right support, can go into work. But I stress that point, the right support. They often don't get given the right support.
Does your plan for welfare, though, currently include reducing benefits from anyone who currently receives them, or removing them from anyone who currently receives them? Because there'll be some people watching this who thinks there are too many people on benefits who play the system. There'll be other people watching who might feel really anxious that benefits they rely on will be taken away from them.
It's about changing the nature of the support and making some of the support conditional upon people taking opportunities that are presented.
So you might increase the conditions required to receive benefits.
Has given guarantees of opportunities for young people, and I think we need to continue down that approach. The thing I'm just pushing back on is this idea that we go to a kind of crude approach, crude cuts to benefits to get the welfare bill down. Often that just pushes people into even more crisis and then even more public spending in another part of the system.
You have this week doled out quite a lot of things that you hope people will like. People may well like them, capping bus fares, also promising to cut taxes on pubs and take VAT off electricity. But the country's problems and the country's debts are massive. This defence we've discussed. You want finally to fix social care. We know you care passionately about that. Will you commit to creating a new social care system before the next election?
I will go as quickly as I can on the reform
That's not the same.
of social care. Well, it's not, because a whole new system, which is what you asked, takes time. I think there are major changes you can make before the next election. People have long stays in hospital, which never should have happened in the first place, and then they end up fit to go home but unable to be discharged because the social care isn't there. This costs the NHS billions of pounds, and we will never get the NHS back to good waiting time standards until we fix social care.
And that's the point, though, isn't it? This is something, actually, in interviews, you and I have discussed this for 20 years.
Yeah.
There have been proposals on the table, very similar proposals being put on the table time after time after time after time. This is about political will, is it not?
Yes.
And it's about being willing to put money onto it.
Yes.
So you don't, it might be suggested, need to wait for new proposals. This is about whether or not you as a new Prime Minister want to commit to it, want to commit taxpayers' money to it, want to commit political energy to it. And you might not have time.
Whatever political capital I have, I will put in to fixing broken social care. And I would not want to leave office without having brought in the substantial change, the new system of social care that you described. I can't put a timeline on it right here, right now, but I know actually not just for the needs of the people who need social care support and work within that system. If we don't do it, the NHS will collapse under the weight of trying to care for people who've really not really needed to end up in the NHS system.
And the reason that politicians have often shied away from it, you know, is because of the money. And the price tags in this country for lots of big things are huge. And lots of things that you care about are expensive and costly.
But we're paying for social care at the moment.
But should the wealthy in this country get ready to pay more tax in Burnham's Britain? You've even got Gary Lineker, who you did an interview with the other day, saying he and his few of his rich pals should pay more. Maybe on their property? Should the wealthy be ready to pay more tax on their assets and their properties?
I'm 4 days in. I mean, you're asking me now to write, the next budget or, the next manifesto.
Well,
because I have a manifesto and I'm serious about sticking to the manifesto.
But you said there was room for manoeuvre on tax, and I'm asking you because you've often argued very clearly that there should be more tax, whether on property or land. You're interested passionately in fixing social care, which is a very costly thing to do. We know the country's debts are enormous, the demands on defence are enormous. So there's lots of economists that would look at that and say, you've got to find money from somewhere. So I'll ask again, should Gary Lineker and wealthy friends be ready to pay more tax? Because you said before, maybe they will have to pay a little more.
Well, let me answer it this way. There are people here in Greater Manchester who pay a much higher council tax than people living in much larger homes in London. So the Chancellor before, Rachel Reeves, was right to start to reform council tax, to create some fairness there in relation to people in homes that are much greater value, who haven't seen their council tax go up over the years because of the failure to revalue the banding. So, that's an example of something that I think was right.
So you would look at reforming the council tax system?
But I am also saying to you that we need to honour the manifesto upon which Labour was elected. And if I was to bring forward any changes, obviously, people would rightly say, well, is this consistent with that manifesto? So, there are big decisions ahead. You are right about that. I need to be very prudent when it comes to the public finances. I will stick to the fiscal rules.
When it gets to difficult decisions, the public in the last couple of decades have, in many cases, felt that politicians haven't listened to them when it comes to decisions about immigration. Under the current government plans, the suggestion is that people in this country legally, migrants, might have to wait 10 years or perhaps more before they are allowed to stay. Will you carry on with that plan? Is that the right approach?
Well, that proposal has been under consultation.
And what's your view as the new Prime Minister?
Well, I come in and I am listening to people's views and we'll come to a fair resolution. The point being, though, I think the worry that people have is the feeling that it's out of control and that we don't have a grip as a country, and therefore we don't have the right procedures.
So you
in
might
place.
look again, though you're not persuaded that that's the right plan, because people might be worried about that.
I'm going to look at what's been said during the consultation. I am not somebody who, if you like, doesn't recognise the public call for firmer control of the immigration system. And I actually heard this from people, again, in my constituency. And I mentioned social care before, and I see people contributing to our society by working in social care, who've in many cases come from around the world to work there or work in the NHS. I don't think people actually say that is something that we don't want. We want people, when they're here and making a contribution, to be able to be, if you like, supported.
But you've said clearly you're not yet persuaded that that is the right way to go, so that people will be interested.
Well, I'm looking
to
at the
hear
consultation. I think it's fair enough for me to say 4 days into the job, where there has been discussions going on, that I kind of come in, look at the situation and say, right, let me see what people are saying, let me see the balance of the arguments. And I think people would expect me to bring a new pair of eyes to these issues and find where the fairness is and the right point of balance. And that's why I have put a pause on the early release scheme. It's why the review I've initiated is real. And if changes are needed, I will make them. And that's the approach I'm taking. I point to that issue just because I think that's a fair way to go when I've just come into the role.
One of the things that is also on your desk is a conflict on the edge of our continent. The Ukraine war rages on. Would you take a call from Vladimir Putin?
I would have to know the circumstances in which that was being requested. So it's hard to answer that question directly. I would obviously want to, first and foremost, take my lead from the person that I would want to hear from, who would be President Zelensky, who will be coming here. I look forward to welcoming him. Again, I pay tribute to the former Prime Minister, who gave him huge personal support. He will get exactly the same from me. I would do nothing, absolutely nothing, to undermine him in the conflict in which he is in. My support for Ukraine is unwavering. It is 100%. And I will do what in Ukraine people think is the right thing that they need. They will have in me a loyal support, and I would do nothing that cuts across that position.
You are very, very busy now as Prime Minister, and our time is almost up. But you say you coming to power will be the biggest change this country's seen in 4 decades. Thing is, 25,000 people voted for you in Makerfield. The 48 million people in the electorate in this country haven't had a chance to have a say on any of your plans. Do you rule out having a general election before 2029?
There is no early general election. And the thing I would say to you is 20 plus, how many million people you just mentioned, voted for a manifesto. We're in a parliamentary democracy. So that is what people voted for. And I've got the support of colleagues in Parliament, and it's a parliamentary democracy that we're in.
Rule it out?
Well, I'm going to rule it out. Yeah, there's no early general election. I don't think people want it. The opinion polls might say there's some people do, some people don't. But the thing is, I just think what I most need to do is get Britain focused on getting the country back where it should be, getting it working. And I do want to be serious about this point, a new politics. We've got to bring back some hope in people's lives. I'm all about bringing back that hope, taking pressure off their shoulders, as I've done this week or made a start this week. But I know there's so much more to do. But I don't think we get there by going back into another sort of divisive process. Let's all face forward together and get this country working again.
Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time today.